Hello again, and time for another video. Every athlete, or certainly most people that I work with, do what we call a what if. So we go through what might happen in their chosen event. And obviously in a bikepacking event there's a lot of things that could happen that might upset your rhythm and affect the result. So I thought I'd talk about the top 5 things that come up and maybe what to do about them, and at the end I'll talk about what to do if something happens that you haven't thought about in your what if period of time. So what are what ifs? So the thing to do is to write down a list of all the things that might happen in your event, things that might go wrong, things you're most scared of, and then once you've got that list, think about what to do for each of the items on your list. It might be some things there's very little you can do, or you might just have to wait for things to get better, or there might be certain things that are just going to cause you to have to stop your event, like perhaps if your bike got stolen, for instance, it would be very difficult to continue. So the first thing that could happen is you could get lost. So what would you do if you got lost? You'd probably get a bit stressed out and then take some time to figure out where you are. Either keep going somewhere to find a known location that you can relocate yourself on, and then get back in action. And why might you get lost would be a way to think about how to deal with that situation. If you're using GPS, if you're using a GPS device to plan your route or to follow your route to navigate with, do you need to have spare batteries or a spare device? They do break, stop working. So if you're on a big event and it's really important to you, it might be worth carrying a spare GPS navigation tool, or have some means of a backup system. And I guess that could be that you navigate with a GPS navigator or your bike computer, and you could use your phone. You have your routes planned on your phone to use as a backup if need be. And if you're using your phone as a backup, you can have your route on the internet, on the cloud somewhere, so that you can download the routes if they disappeared from your device or you can't access them for some reason. So in the world of Wi-Fi there's lots of ways around these sort of things. You could carry paper maps. A map that shows the whole of your route might be worth carrying just as a sort of a backup system. What else might happen? Well, a lot of people, actually, probably the most common thing that people are scared of that I've worked with as bikepackers is having a puncture or some other mechanical. Well, obviously a puncture is not such a big deal, and you would expect to have a puncture in a big event, or you'd consider it to be a likely event. So what can you do about punctures? Well, you could use tubeless tyres. Tubeless tyres are less likely to puncture, and also they're much nicer to ride, they're much more comfortable, so there's an advantage there. Obviously, if you do have a puncture, you need to know how to fix it, and the issue there perhaps with tubeless tyres is they're quite hard to get off, or they can be. If you have an issue with a tubeless tyre, you just put a tube in. If the side rips, what you're going to do, carrying some sort of boot to repair the sidewall of your tyre until you can get somewhere to buy a new tyre, or carrying a spare tyre. Well, carrying a spare tyre is quite a lot of extra weight and you might not want to do that, but carrying some spare tubes and duct tape can be used to fix tyres. I've even heard of somebody fixing a torn sidewall with a credit card, which seems a bit harsh, and I'm surprised it didn't burst the inner tube. And also I heard of somebody managing to fix one with a banana skin. So lots of options there, and just a bit of thinking outside the box. But knowing about what you might do and having a plan is what's really this process is all about. If you have a more severe mechanical issue, then you may not be able to fix it on the roadside. For instance, things that have you obviously might have damaged your derailleur and your gearing, and you're not really going to carry a spare derailleur with you. And one thing that one of the people I work with, she's, I think, a couple of times had a gear cable break. Well, that's a very rare event, but it happened. It turned out that she didn't really know how to change a gear cable, so she had to wait to get to a bike shop who were able to help her. the simpler your setup on your bike, the less likely to have mechanicals. So you might want to ride a one-by setup so you don't have any front chainring changes to worry about. But then again, if you have got front changes to worry about and your front changer goes wrong, you can just take your front derailleur off and then you're still in a one-by setup, so you can still keep moving until you can get things sorted. So that's mechanical issues. Obviously, if your body goes wrong, that could be more serious, and it's not unusual to have problems in events, like knee problems are quite common, and certainly somebody I worked with, she changed her cleats just before the event, or shoes as well. You know, shoes. She changed the whole pedal system, which I wasn't aware of at the time. But that, you know, that's not a good idea in general. It's much better to be sure that you can ride with the pedal and cleat system that you've got, because that's all the drivetrain and it all affects your biomechanics. And what happened was that she'd moved from a pedal system that didn't have a lot of float to a pedal system that had quite a lot of float, and that meant her foot was twisting in and her knee was tracking in a bit more, and that caused her problems down her iliotibial band, I think the outside of her leg, and caused knee problems, and ultimately she had to quit the race because that was so bad, and then have several months off to recover, but ultimately she still got to her next event, which was quite lucky and good. And this is a very experienced athlete who's won bikepacking events in the past. In the Transatlantic Way race, one of the people I worked with had knee problems, and she ended up having to go through A&E, but what she found was by having some, riding a bit easier for a few days and having a half day off and getting in the bed and breakfast and spending some time to recover was enough to get her back on track so that she could complete the race, and she ended up finishing first in the event that year, despite having the knee problem. So don't think that just because you're in severe pain it's the end of your race. Just think of ways around it, and also say, it's useful to have an idea of where the major towns are and where they might have a hospital or something like that, or where you can get help. And I don't advocate taking painkillers, but I mean they can work, and that particular athlete did use painkillers. It's certainly a short-term option, but not necessarily the most healthy option. It may be that you can't find food, so think about that. Think about how much food you're going to have to carry. If you're in a very remote, if you're doing an event in a very remote area, you will need to carry more food than if you're doing an event in a well-populated area, or even somewhere like here where I live in France. Most things are shut on a Sunday, so if you're on a Sunday, a holiday when all the shops are shut, you need to know when these holidays are and plan accordingly. So you have to carry more food on a Sunday or a public holiday, because you'll be less chance of getting food. Or it might be that you want to rely on getting a good meal in a restaurant on those days. If your stuff gets stolen, there's probably not much you can do, and that's I guess that's what you just have to be careful and be aware and take steps to avoid losing things. Carry your valuables on your body. If you don't want to lock your bike, a lot of people just rush into a shop to get some resupply and don't lock the bike. Some people do lock the bike, and you just have to make a judgment on that. I'm not aware of, certainly nobody I've worked with has had anything stolen in a bikepacking event, because they don't tend to go through major crime areas, but it's obviously a possibility. If you've gone through all your what ifs, you've got your list of what ifs, you've taken the time to plan how you might deal with each of the what ifs goes wrong, and then something happens in your event that you haven't put on your list. Well, how are you going to deal with that? Well, the thing to do, a good way to deal with it is there's two books I certainly would recommend. A book by Scott Jurek called Eat and Run. He's an ultra distance runner, but the information in the book is really useful for any ultra distance type event, and he has done certain multi-day events. or Steve Peters' book, The Chimp Paradox, which is a great book about life and how to deal with life, as well as deal with problems that might occur in sport. I mean, Steve Peters worked with British cycling, and people like Chris Hoy accredit a lot of their success to working with Steve Peters. So we both have a similar approach. It's 3 steps, and Steve Peters has an acronym for it, which I think is really useful to use. Accept, it's called AMP, accept, move on with a plan. So accept that you have to panic. Everybody panics when things go wrong, particularly if it's really important to you. So give yourself that time to panic. 10 or 20 minutes or even half an hour or a couple of hours of panicking could save you a day or 2 days in the future, rather than just trying to rush on and panic and then rush on where things continually keep going wrong. And usually it's only like 5 or 10 minutes to accept that you're going to have to panic and stress out a bit until you calm down enough to think more rationally. Once you can think more rationally, then that's the time to start making a plan, so that you can move on with a plan. Make a plan, think about your options, take a bit of time to make sure it's the best plan possible, because remember, bikepacking events aren't over in an hour or 20 minutes or whatever, like a lot of other type of races are. It could be several days or even another week or 2 to the end of the event. So making a good plan is worth the time taken, and then move on with the plan, so that if it's an unexpected event, accept and move on with a plan, and that's it. I hope you found this useful. Please subscribe if you like my videos, click the bell as a reminder, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.